Hi there, YouTube. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. Let's bring in our friends over on Twitch here, which is the one that we record for posterity. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle. It is the 8th of August, if you can believe it, 2024. Hope everybody's doing well. I might as well just dive right into this. Got some exciting news. Mark York in the comment section says booger. I hope that's in reference to somebody else. Hopefully it's from the Gorn. So I don't, as I've been around long enough to know what my bad habits are and have enough free time to list all of them. I get real enthusiastic about things and I oversell things, and bill time is a realization of how much time actually takes instead of, what I think it's going to take and all the rest of this stuff. But something really important happened today, so let me tell you a little bit about that. And hopefully I'll be able to live up to the hype. So here's the basic deal. I don't suffer from a lack of creativity. I badly suffer from execution, from the ability to execute things, and I suspect that's because I think that's probably the way it is with most people. You got Elvis, who's got all this talent, and Elvis can't handle his bookings and his money. I'm not saying I'm Elvis. I'm saying Elvis wishes he was me, but basically, it's pretty much standard in show business, and certainly the case at places like Daily Wire, where they have the people that are the product, and then there are the people that market and produce and export and distribute and sell the product, and I don't have that end of it. So there's been a huge blockage for me for quite a long time. And it looks like this. I had these ideas, and I still have them, and as you'll hear, I think there's some hope for actually seeing them. But things like Major Mace Mattingly and colonies and story mechanics and all the rest of this stuff. And I've got so many ideas. I'm also going to be doing, by the way, a weekly series on how to beat Kamala Harris, starting drop the first one on Sunday. Because I, just as an aside to what got me motivated here, when I did the bye-bye thing on Joe Biden, it dropped on a Sunday, but it dropped about four hours after he made the announcement that he wasn't running. And that got to nearly 60,000 views, which, as I said before, I did not think I was capable of getting. I thought the algorithm was sitting on my head. And it turns out it wasn't. That was my misconception. It turns out the algorithm was waiting for content that's topical and released at the right time. So you can only imagine my shock and horror. So basically, what's been happening to me since I finished the rewrite since I finished the first draft of the Frank Luke script, which took all of my time and took all of my time immediately following Empire of Terror, which also took all of my time. But the problem is, to say it's a lack of organization is to understate the case. What's been happening for me for the longest time is I've got so many things to do and so many things to start that it's just this giant wall of chaos. And since there's so many things to do, I end up not doing any of them. I kick the right angle out the door, and then I sit here and try to focus on whatever I'm focusing on. And the thing that's been giving me the most trouble is that the things that I need to do, and that I said I'm going to do, and that I actually have some hope of doing, is that I have to be in different chairs to do every one of them. So basically, let me tell you what that means. This chair that I'm in now is the chair that I'm in for Stratosphere Lounge, Stratosphere Studio, and right angles. And this is my easy chair. By that I mean I turn the camera on and I just start yapping, and for some unexplainable reason, people will occasionally sit and listen to it. So there's that. Things to come, I want to be a produced show where I'm going to have to do that. I got a backlit green screen. So I want that to be, I don't want it to look photoreal, but I want it to be, there's a package of special effects that are out there of urban decay and buildings kind of falling and, this kind of thing. So I kind of want that to be in there with a shining star in the sky representing, hope for the next cycle. So things to come requires me in a suit and a tie, a suit anyway, makeup, teleprompter, shooting on the 4K camera with a green screen, with the backlighting and the side lighting and the key lighting, and all of the stuff that that it used to take to do firewalls. And then when I've got that segment, the segment has to be written. And after it's written, I've got to go shoot it. And after I shoot it, I'm not trying to complain. I'm just explaining why this news that I got today I think is good news. Then I've got to bring it in. I've got to edit it. I got to key myself into the background. I got to do all those things. So that is an entirely different room now. Major Mace Mattingly, on the other hand, is on a different desk on a PC computer with software that I haven't used in a while. So just sitting down to get work done on that is almost like I have to just delete disk space, to delete files so that I can load my Unreal Engine drive space. Story Mechanics takes place right over there, which is yet a third different space. And I like it a lot because it's a physical space. I've taken the widest part of the studio over there. And the look I wanted was for me to be in front of the camera like this, in front of a webcam, but in back of me, you can see the cardboard cutouts that gave me the idea. In back of me, I wanted a projection screen and I wanted cardboard cutouts because I didn't want to key myself in. I wanted real physical space between me and the screen, and then I can get clips from Midnight Cowboy or whatever, and I can run them on the screen, and it looks like it's being projected, and it's just cool. So using those 4 chairs as an example, the right angle Stratosphere Lounge, Stratosphere Studio chair, the Things to Come chair, the Major Mace Mattingly chair, and the Story Mechanics chair, means that when I come into work and try to get something done, I'll think about working on one thing or another, and I get almost nothing done. I just honest to God, literally don't know where to start. So I don't have a creativity problem. I've got an engineering problem. And so what I did was I called my best friend in the world, who may or may not be watching now, appears in the comment section, Phil Trick, who I met 50 years ago working at the Miami Planetarium. He was much older than me. I was 13. He was, old man of 23. And Phil's an engineer. And I called him and said, "Hey, buddy, I gotta do something about this. I'm just not getting anywhere, and I don't know what to do about it. And can you help me?" And he said, "Well, let's see if we can." So I said, "I'm free tomorrow morning," and that would be this morning. And so what ended up happening was we came up with this. See? Everybody got that? Okay, so there's the answer. Problem solved. I don't need to go any further now that you've seen this. What Phil was able to do for me was to, and his wife Bobby actually came up with the idea. So, for example, we shoot the right angles on Tuesday morning, and generally it takes about an hour for them to get their Steve and Scott to get their videos uploaded, and I'll do a show usually once every other day. I'll edit a show, post it, because editing it is not a big deal. Posting it is a big deal. It's about an hour per show, because it has to be uploaded to Rumble, it has to be uploaded to YouTube, it has to be uploaded to Facebook. Thumbnails have to be made. Again, I'm not crying. I'm just going to tell you what these things consist of. I have to put together the MailChimp mailing list so that the members get the notification, and then I have to schedule on those 3 platforms. Also, I have to edit out an audio-only track that goes up to SoundCloud. So posting a right angle is, editing and posting is probably an hour to 90 minutes, something like that. And while we were talking at the beginning of this session today, trying to get organized, talking about how we shoot them on Tuesday, and I generally kick them out the door one every day or every other day. Phil's wife Bobby said, "Well, why don't you just do everything on Tuesday?" And I thought, well, I don't want to do everything on Tuesday. That's a lot of editing. That's a lot of posting. And I thought, wait a minute, Haas. We're here to learn things and make some changes. And I thought, no, that's great. That was like the breakthrough moment. So looking at my, it's not a chart, it's a spreadsheet. We're not living in the Stone Age after all. These aren't stone knives and bearskins we're working with. What came out of that was to say, okay, so here's how we're going to start organizing your output, Bill, because I am basically doing this by myself. Obviously, I have Steve and Scott on the right angles, but I am the factory. There's no editor anymore, and it's me. Shelley answers the phone and deals with our membership and does it beautifully. But I am not only the content, I am the content marketer, distributor. I'm the engineer. I'm everything. So what this thing ended up being is this, and most of you will listen to this and you'll think, well, congratulations, Bill. 65 years old, you finally figured out how to get things organized. You might have done that in your 20s, and I suspect most people probably would have. But here's what I ended up with. So we shoot the right angles. I also noticed, by the way, as part of the procedure of how I got to this place I'm about to tell you about, I also noticed that there are some things that are in stone. I am in this chair every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock because that's when Steve and Scott are on the Skype call. I haven't missed that in 10 years. Now, obviously, there's been one or two times when I've been out of town and had Zoe sit in. But Tuesday mornings, and sometimes we have to push to Friday. Either I have to cancel or reschedule, or Scott does, or Steve does. But virtually every Tuesday morning, literally, but virtually every Tuesday morning, I am in this chair, and pretty much every Monday night I'm in this chair for Stratosphere Studio, and pretty much every Thursday night I'm in the chair for Stratosphere Lounge. Sometimes I have to push it a day, and sometimes I have to miss it, but as a general rule, when there are people depending on me to be there, I'm there. So what the future looks like, it's going to be technically starting next week, although I've got an awful lot of things on my to-do list to get this thing going, is that Tuesdays we're going to shoot the right angles at Tuesday morning like we normally do. That usually wraps around 1 o'clock, 1:30 Pacific time, and then I'm going to spend the rest of the day on Tuesday editing all 4 of them, posting all 4 of them, and scheduling them through the week with the most topical show first, the second most topical show second, and then the third one third. And it's going to take me the rest of the day on Tuesday, but when I go home on Tuesday, the right angles will be done for the week. And that leaves me with 4 weekdays and 2 weekend days, which I expect to be spending here, but not to the same degree. So Tuesdays is going to be a right angle day. That means that Monday, I come in on Monday morning and I don't have anything to deliver on Monday if the right angles have been kicked out the door. That means that Monday morning, thank you very much for that super chat from, looks like PhotoFast, I'm sorry, or PhiloFast. Love the last few right angles. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much for that super chat. So Monday, here's the knockout punch. Monday I come in, and instead of staring at the walls trying to figure out how I'm going to do a little bit of everything, on Monday I come in and I go to one chair, and the Monday chair is things to come. I write the script. I know what I want to write about. I've already got that sorted out. I haven't written yet, but I write the script. Then I go in there. I tape it. Shelley runs the teleprompter. I come out. I edit it, and I've got the pilot for things to come. I do things to come on Monday. Tuesday I do right angles. Wednesday I do story mechanics. there's not much left to do in terms of getting the setup in place. But one of the things that I have to do, and I'm in the mood to move, so we're going to test this tomorrow. There's a special kind of video conferencing software that I need. One version of it is called, I think, Riverside, and the other version, which I heard about, is called Zencastr. And let me tell you what's special about those guys. First of all, the single most important thing about the software that I use for story mechanics is when I'm going to be asking celebrities for their time, I can't expect or ask them to set up QuickTime to record and then upload their videos to a Google Drive. It's just out of the question. So what has to happen is I have to have software where I can say, here's the link. Click on the link whenever we schedule it for, Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific or whatever. Click on the link. You'll show up in the lobby. I'll let you in, and we'll go. Now, what I think it's Riverside and Zencastr do is they have a low-res version so that we can talk in real time, and we don't have skips or stutters, just like a Zoom call or like the streaming that we're doing now. But the software also records a high-resolution version, much higher than the one that goes out for the conversation, and writes it to my drive. But the special thing that it does is it does a completely separate file of their video and writes it in high resolution to their drive. And when the conference call is over, the software goes to their drive, grabs that file, puts it on the cloud, deletes it off of their computer, and now I have a high-res picture of me and a high-res picture of whoever I'm interviewing, and it looks as good as it's going to look on a webcam, which gives me a lot of opportunities in terms of editing and making the show look nice. So having the separate video and separate tracks is great. So I'm going to test that out tomorrow and see how that works. Story mechanics is Wednesday. I was going to start with, I numbered those thumbnails on the website. That was probably a mistake, especially a mistake since one of those thumbnails is Dick Rutan, and his interview is going to be tougher than I originally thought at this point. But I was going to start with John Voight. But John was the only one who was a little bit, I don't want to say was hesitant, but a little bit, had some questions about mostly because he's never been asked questions so much about how he goes about his acting. So what I've decided to do is I've got the radio for John here in the building. I've got the wheelchair for Gary here in the building. But what I want to start with, I think the person I'd like to start with is Mike Rowe, because I've done Mike's show 4 times. We're on really good terms, and if I start with Mike Rowe, we can start about the art of storytelling, just storytelling. It's a lot lower pressure for me. It's a lot more, there's a lot more room for error and learning mistakes with Mike. And so I need to get at least 2 segments out of these story mechanic interviews. So I would do one segment on how do you tell a story? What makes a story interesting? How is it that one person can just sit there and talk and people are interested in listening? What makes that? And then I would do a separate section with Mike at the same recording on the regular guy as that kind of architect. What is it about the regular guy? How is he portrayed? Why is it sometimes the regular guy is portrayed as just cattle by the elites, and other times people realize, no, the regular guy's the heart of every story. So that means that before I can call Mike and try to book him, I have to get the life-size cutout of him done, and I have to get the present for him because I want to give a gift from the members to everybody who's on the show. And for Mike, I think the thing to do, I saw these on eBay, is there are sets of gold-plated toolkits, like gold-plated wrenches and things like that. And that seemed like a nice thing for him. That means my action items are I have to buy that gift, get that here right away. I have to prepare the graphic and get that to the print shop, and so I can have my life-size Mike Rowe. I've got my life-size Johnny Voight standing over there. And then as soon as those things are physically in my hands so that I'm not waiting for them, then I book Mike Rowe and we get this thing rolling. The setup is pretty much set up. So that's my Wednesdays is getting ready for story mechanics. I have some background graphics I have to do to run on the screen, but basically that's going to be the Metropolis kind of theme, which I really like, which I think is kind of cool. So that's Wednesday. And Thursday, I'm going to come in. See, this is what's so that has me so excited about this idea. Over there in the other corner is a different table. It's the table I'm going to be sitting at when I shoot Story Mechanics, but it's also the table where my PC is hooked up. And going over there and going from the Mac to the PC is not a big deal, but getting back into Unreal is. Mace Mattingly is the test run for the colonies, and the software is very different. I haven't used it in 6 or 7 months or something, but on Thursdays I come in and I sit down with Unreal Engine and I spend the day on Unreal Engine, and I do nothing but work on Major Mace Mattingly on Thursdays because the other stuff is taken care of. What I want, not what I want, what I need, what I've determined, to be honest, I need is this. Before I can do a membership drive and ask for more members again, I have to have a first episode of the 3 shows I've been promising for months and months and months, pushing a year now. And that is, I have to have the first Story Mechanics in the can, ready to go. I have to have the first Things to Come ready to go. And I have to have the first Major Mace Mattingly ready to go. And the Major Mace Mattingly thing is just going to be essentially a trailer that's just very short, and it's basically going to say, in 1966 Project Horizon, or 1959 Project Horizon planned to put a 100-man moon base, on the, and it turns out they succeeded, and budget cuts, blah 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 blah. Now there are 4 men left on the moon, and then just going to show shots of astronauts building the moon base, and then I'm just going to cut to these 4 guys sitting in chase lounges, watching this TV set, that's this big, out in the shadow. They're out on the moon. They're going to have a little pressurized thing that they're going to pop their hams into. They're going to have a straw to drink their beer on the moon because they want to be outside. You can't stay cooped up. And they're going to watch 2 or 3 clips and make comments on 2 or 3 clips. The whole thing together probably should be 90 seconds, 2 minutes tops. And so when I have an example of all 3 of those shows, then I'm gonna start pushing the membership stuff hard, and I can't do it until then because it's not fair to people, and I feel like I was, I just wouldn't feel good about it. So I'm just looking at this now and I realize, okay, this is great. Fridays I record my How to Beat Kamala Harris. I wrote the script. That's a written script. I wrote the script for the first one last night. I think it's hilarious. And I'd like to get a little bit of feedback on this. I had, when I got a written script for episode 1 of How to Beat Kamala Harris, the first episode is called Equity. And it reads kind of like a firewall. And I thought, well, I could do it like a firewall, and I've decided I don't want to do that for 2 reasons. One of them is it's a lot more work, and more work means more time, means harder to do, which means less likely to happen, and all the rest of it. But the main reason I don't want to do it as a firewall is because I think that YouTube, not the algorithm, just YouTube in general, has changed. I'm going to do How to Beat Harris in this chair because I think the authenticity and the webcam is the way that everybody's going these days, and having me stand there in a suit in front of this, this background keyed in is just, it's just too formal, and I hope I'm right about that. I feel like I'm right about that, but I don't need to do a green screen. I can do it right here. The script I've written, I think, is really good. It's about so-called equity and her, too boomerish. That's exactly right, J.B. Coulter. That's exactly what the old style firewalls had me worried about. They're just too boomerish. They don't seem authentic because they look scripted and produced, because they were. This way I can just put it up here and read it. And I've got a lot of humor in there. And so it's a little bit irreverent, but it's got the same kind of, substance that firewalls and afterburners have. It's just going to basically say, well, first it's going to start off by showing Harris being interviewed in 2020 before the election, where Nora O'Donnell on 60 Minutes says, "You've been called the most liberal member of the Senate," and she just starts cackling. And she goes, "I suppose Mike Pence might have called me that." Ha 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 ha. And then, to my astonishment, there's actual journalism done, and she says, "No, an independent review group that's a nonpartisan review group has said that you're the most liberal member of the Senate, and because you back this, you back this, you back this," and it's deer in the headlights look from Kamala, and you can just see the wheels turning. And my entire point here, at least for the first part of this, is why are you so ashamed to admit that you're the most liberal member of the Senate? This is the theme of the How to Beat Harris thing. The meta is that we see Trump has a rally of 30,000 people and he turns 20,000 away. And you see Harris try to do fill up a high school gymnasium, and people start walking out when they realize that the free concert is over. And you think, hooray, Trump's going to win in a landslide. But what I've come to realize is that a lot of political analysts say, assert strongly is probably a better word, that people don't vote so much for somebody as they vote against the other person. So if there's no enthusiasm for Harris, my feeling in the past was, wow, look at all this enthusiasm for Trump. Look at this lack of enthusiasm for Biden or Harris. We're going to win this thing in a landslide. But that's assuming that people go out and vote for somebody. What a lot of analysts say is, no, they go out and vote against somebody. So nobody goes to a Harris concert because nobody particularly likes Harris. It doesn't matter. They hate Trump more, so they're going to go out and vote against Trump. So what I wanted to do with this series is 13 episodes, I think, between now and Election Day, is I wanted to come up with a complete list per episode of reasons to vote against Harris. That's all. I can't make people like Trump, and I don't want to try. But I can do once a week a kind of an in-depth reason, 13 different reasons, why you should vote against Harris. And my main goal in this is to pull her working class blue collar Democrats away from her. And the idea behind the first one, it's a term I'm going to be using a lot of, is get her out of the gray. In other words, make her commit. Are you a socialist, yes or no? If the answer is yes, then you're going to lose blue-collar workers who earn paychecks and pay taxes. If you say yes, socialism, and I've got all this written out, then you're asking people to carry other people who just don't want to do the work. They just want the ride. So if she says, yes, I'm a socialist, she's going to lose the middle. If she says, no, I'm not a socialist, then I'm going to say that we need to run ads that say that why is Kamala Harris so embarrassed to say that she's a socialist when her entire idea of equity is socialism, and then I'm going to talk about equity and show that's what it is. So pin her down. Make it so that she has to commit to a position, and whichever position she commits to, structure the argument so that if she says I'm a socialist, structure the argument for middle class Democrats who say your taxes are going to go up to pay for people who aren't working. If she says I am not a socialist, then focus the message on her left wing and her Gen Z supporters and saying, if socialism is such a great idea and Kamala is your hope for far left socialism and bringing about this workers' paradise, why is it that she's ashamed and afraid to even admit that she is one? Why you would think that if this socialism thing is such a great idea and she's going to be your champion, she would be proud of the fact that she's the most liberal member of the Senate, but she won't even answer the question. So one way or another, you split them up and you peel off a voting block, and you do it on a per topic basis, on a per issue basis. So I know the first one's equity because it's written. The second one's probably going to be trans, and it's just going to be, look, pin her down, get her out of the gray. Are you in favor of men competing in women's sports as trans athletes? Yes or no? If yes, then I'm going to run all of the videos of these guys knocking these women unconscious and this douchebag from wherever he is, Algeria in the Olympics, and I'm going to show Leah Thomas winning by 6 laps, not by a sixth of a lap, not by 6 seconds, winning by 35 seconds. I'm just going to show this, and this, and I'm going to make this appeal to Democrats, because I don't have to appeal to Republicans. I need to peel off Democrats and give them reasons to vote against Kamala Harris. If, on the other hand, she hems and haws and says, well, I don't know, blah, 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 then you go right at the left and say, okay, well, she doesn't believe in trans rights. She's afraid to admit that she's in favor of trans rights, and you think that she's afraid to admit that because the American people are against this. So what makes you think that if she gets elected, she's going to be able to deliver on something that's so unpopular that she's not even willing to admit that she backs it during the election? This is the general idea. So that's going to be what I do with my Fridays. We did some research, meaning Bobby did some research, Bobby Trick, and found out that the best, this was a bit of a surprise to me, that the best time to release a video in terms of viewership is Sunday morning between 9 and 11 Eastern time. And the nice thing about that with the How to Beat Kamala Harris thing is that means people get to see it on their Sunday off, and it also means it's at the very top of the news cycle on Monday morning. And if I can continue to get like Instapundit links and other links and so on, then I'm in front of the wave instead of 9 days behind it, which is the way business has been going lately since then. So I've got 1 day to do right angles. I got 1 day for Major Mace Mattingly. I got 1 day for story mechanics. I got 1 day for things to come. I've got 1 day for How to Beat Harris, at least through the election. And then if these things do anything as well as what the bye-bye segment did, then I could be looking at tens of thousands of people for a view. And if I can get that audience and build that audience, then after the election, then I'll do a once a week or a twice a week hot topic news thing from this chair. Wow. Wizgo Anon says, what do you need us to do, Bill? Well, to be honest with you, Wizgo, what you're doing right now is more important than anything you can imagine. Just the support, the emotional support, and obviously our members who stuck with us through thick and thin and bill time and all the rest of it. It means the world. Now, Roadrunner says, will the Major Mace Mattingly Day turn into the Colonies Day? Yes. Everything that I need to do for the colonies, I need to do on a smaller scale for Major Mace Mattingly. It is essentially it's a 1/4 scale prototype. Once thank you again. We're behind you all the way. You guys are the best. Once I get the pipeline working with Major Mace Mattingly, that's when I can start looking at hiring animators to come in and start to farm out this flow, and then we can start putting together the sizzle reel for the colonies. I've got the script for the colonies pilot really well worked out in my head. And I've got a time scheduled for the 2 rewrites that I'm contracted to do for the Frank Luke thing. That's a whole different animal, doing a rewrite. Cutting is nothing like as hard as writing the stuff. Cutting is difficult monkey work, but it's monkey work. Eric wants to know, will I have original music composed for Mace Mattingly in the colonies? I don't think I'll have it composed, but I do think I will. I know for a certain fact that I will use available, copyright-free music. That's what I ended up doing for D is for Dungeon. And by the way, D is for Dungeon is a finished 15-minute film. I mean, there was more that was going to go into it, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to that or not, but it's a finished film. And I've run it on Stratosphere Studio Channel, but I've never run it, I don't think I've ever run it on BillWhittle.com. So I might just do that too and see. But there he is again. My goodness gracious, I'm just speechless every week, honestly. Yeah, John Eden for another $100, well, $99.99 super chat just to do it. And John, thank you so much. Thank you all so much. So I'm actually excited. Now, I also know human nature well enough, and especially my human nature well enough, to know that I'm excited now and I'm ready to go now, but old habits die hard. And so I'm making myself accountable to Phil, and the reason I'm speaking to you about it is I'm trying to make it accountable to the rest of you to get this stuff actually done and out the door. I'm inclined, after a long period of really having a hard time focusing, now that I've got a light, that's showing me how to get out of this maze that I've been in, now that I've got a string I can follow to get out of there, I'm really excited about being able to, deliver this stuff, because it's no longer, you've got 200 things to do. Which one do you do first? And the answer is, well, I guess none of them, because I just can't do it. Roadrunner says, Bill, make sure your Monday and Thursday afternoons are clear. Yes, those are on the schedule for Monday night and Thursday night. Those are scheduled events. So there we go. Anyway, that's what's new with me and what I'm excited about, and I think it's great. It doesn't hurt. We'll do a little segue into the politics now. Watching the way the press has flipped on Kamala Harris, from being a don't show her on camera because she's an idiot, to being female Martin Luther King Jr. Has been interesting and not surprising. But after all of the adoration and the huge love bomb that they threw for her to convince the country that she's everybody's favorite choice, there was a period of about a week or 10 days, maybe 2 weeks at the most, between when Biden resigned. Well, I think he has resigned. No one's seen him that I'm aware of, but there was about a week and a half or so between when Biden dropped out of the race and endorsed Harris and the time that she picked her running mate. And during that 10-day period, I was worried that, not that Kamala, I don't even care anymore. I wasn't worried that Kamala would do something sensible, because I know her limitations. But I was worried that somebody sensible would talk her into doing something sensible. That was a real concern I had. And I was concerned that she would pick Shapiro, because that would shore up the Democrats' Jewish vote, which is tattered, and he's an effective governor. And then she announced her pick, and I just it's not like I exhaled because I was that worried about it, but honestly, that's when I realized I really feel like we're gonna do just fine, because well, first of all, I mean, you could probably make the case for the Republican ticket too, but so Tim Walz brings her the state of Minnesota, which was the only state in the union to not go for Ronald Reagan in 1984. So that battleground state, the only state in the union that was so liberal that not even Ronald Reagan could win it in 1984. Well, she's got Wisconsin locked down now, apparently. And she's also got California locked down, neither of which hurt us, because neither of them were, ever considered in play. And I don't even know, I'm not convinced Wisconsin's not in play. But he is at least as left-wing as she is, and that means that they are doubling down on the far left and the woke. And Roadrunner here, talking to Lady Hawk, says, reminded me of Andrew Breitbart interview, hijack. And Breitbart said politics is downstream of culture, and none of these idiots, and that's what they are, none of these idiots can tell that the culture is way past peak woke, way past. Disney delayed Snow White for 18 months to reshoot it because the reaction of the wokeness of it was so catastrophic that they completely redid the entire movie. you get movies that like Twister that don't have a, the director of Twister caught a lot of heat because he didn't make the tornadoes about global warming. He says, yeah, this is not a message movie, it's a fun movie. And it's doing great. Deadpool and Wolverine is doing great. And that's a buddy film where there's no girl boss who's telling these two guys, how idiotic they are, and here's how you do it. And so everybody is past peak woke, and Eric points out here Elon is playing his cards beautifully with Disney, but Elon Musk is the most important person on the planet. And I don't think there's any question about that. And Elon Musk has gone from a guy who voted for Joe Biden to being an active campaigner for Donald Trump. Elon Musk is taking SpaceX out of California because Gavin Newsom signed a law that says that we don't have to tell your parents if your kids are going to have trans surgery. He just came out and said it. He said, that's it, I'm done. When the holy grail of the left is a carbon-free economy based on electric cars, and the guy who has done the most to sell electric cars moves out of California because liberal politics are insane, that matters. And you can recruit as many Ben Stillers as you want to, but I think you could take all of the Hollywood celebrities, which actually mattered even as little as 10 years ago. I would say certainly by the time the 2016 election rolled around, they were largely irrelevant. But prior to that, celebrity endorsements meant something. Now, if you're going to trot out George Clooney to tell me to vote for the Democrat, yawn. Who's George Clooney? The real unpaid heart of what I'm seeing out there in the pop culture is actually, strangely enough, solidly for Trump. I've seen a lot of black commentators, not just black conservatives, but black commentators basically saying after the shooting, the guy was, he's OG, he's the original gangster. He just got his ear nicked off, and he's pumping the fist in the air, and he's a badass dude. It's like, yeah, they are bleeding supporters, not just supporters. The Democrats are bleeding entire voting blocks. So one of these episodes of How to Beat Harris are going to be about Hispanics, and how this idea that Hispanics think that we should have a completely open border and allow everybody in is just not true. It isn't true, and I mean to show it. One of the things, and this is something about personalizing things. I don't have the resources to do this, but mostly I'm just going to be making these things so that I can hopefully send them up the chain of command, and somebody with the money to do campaign ads will actually see them. But one of the things I want to do is, because I think this was the most damning thing, I think this one sentence ended Kamala Harris's presidential bid in 2020. And that's when Tulsi Gabbard said that Harris, as Attorney General in California, kept people in prison beyond the length of their term in order to get free work. That to me is a death blow. And I don't want to pass on that information. I want to see the faces of the people who were supposed to be released from prison and didn't get released from prison so that they could continue to work for her for free. I want their faces, and I want to interview them. I want them to tell me what it feels like to know that you're going to get out of prison on November 8th and find out that you don't get out of prison until April 15th for no reason whatsoever other than the fact that somebody wants your free labor. I want to know what that feels like, and I want that person's face on camera talking about it. That's how you personalize the message. That's how you beat these people, is to stop making this thing abstract. Dave Big Booty says there's a mosaic of Kamala Harris made from all the black men she kept in prison for the free labor. I have the pic. Dave, I'd like you to send me that pic. If you can send it to info@billwhittle.com and send and just mark it for me, because Shelly will get that email. That'll be great. Now, what I really would like, and I don't know if anybody can help me find this, or send it to info@billwhittle.com, but what I would really, really like is the highest resolution possible on that picture, because if I show something that's a grid, and it's Harris's face made up of people's faces, then you go, wow, that's a lot of faces. I want to be able to get close enough to be able to just do row after row after row and see the individual people's faces, and I just want them to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming while I'm talking over it. I just want it keep it coming. I want actual faces, and this picture may be enough. Hang on. Steve Whoop just put in a link. Let me see if that's it. Yeah, he says here it is. Give me 1 second to check out what this is, because this is the end of the black vote for her. Yeah. Some of these are in red. Let's see what the resolution of this puppy is here. This may be good enough. Okay. I see what's happened. The ones in the red boxes are duplicates, and that is a bit of a problem. Now, I don't know whether that's done by an anti-Harris person or whether they purposely said we just need this to fill in the shade. But this image that you've sent me has red boxes, and one image, which is not a close-up of a face, by the way, is duplicated, I don't know, 20 times maybe, something like that. But the rest of the face... No, hold on. Okay, see, this is where we have to be very careful. There's a lot of duplicates here. I'm looking at... Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of duplicates. So the way you make a mosaic of a face is... you've got software. The software will look at each individual frame. They'll assign it a brightness, and then it'll look at a picture of Harris. Then it'll plug in the faces. But I don't want duplicates. I want the individual faces. I'd much, much, much rather have 30 unique pictures of actual faces than a collage that makes up her face. So if anybody knows how to get a hold of that information, if anybody knows how to, or where the people that put the montage together got those faces, if I could find the original, some of them look like mugshots, I'm not saying they all are, then that's a much more powerful thing than having somebody say, oh, look, here's a picture of Kamala Harris, but they're all duplicates, there's only 6 of them, or 9 or 12 or whatever, but surely there's more than that. Hey, Hoppy View says, hey, Bill, finally caught your live stream. Hey, Hoppy View, how are you? Hope everybody's doing well. So now I just don't think the image has the resolution for me to zoom in enough to cut out the individual faces. That's a time-consuming job, but it's worth it. It's not a terribly big deal. I can just zoom it in, go in there in Photoshop, just put a box around a face, copy and paste it, and then I'm just concerned that the resolution is so low. But as a last-ditch effort, if I can't find anything better, then I will. Let me go ahead and do a screen cap of this right now. Anyway, I'm trying to think: is there any way I can make this image as big as possible? Well, let's do it. Yes, that'll do it. All right, give me 1 second, gang. I'm going to enlarge this image to full screen, and then I'm going to do a screen capture. So just hang on 1 second for me, please. That's as big as that's going to get on this screen. And I'm going to capture all of these faces. And if I have to go in and do them one by one and mark off the duplicates first and then go in and cut the originals out and do it that way, then I'll do it that way. But man, that is damning. And I'm looking at this thing and I don't see any white people in here at all. I don't see a single, well, I'm looking at the darker parts of the, no, I don't see a single white face in here. Not one. So not only did she keep people in prison beyond their term, and not only did she keep black people in prison beyond their term, but she appears to have only kept black people in prison beyond their term. What? Wow, that's the black vote right there. That's for two, and as Steve Whoop points out, and what she's making is $2 a day per person. That's what prison labor is getting paid. Oh, that's a good point. Japan, Japan, $4.99. This is why it's good to host a show that's got the smartest audience on the internet. It's not the biggest one, but it's the smartest one. Japan 0499, whose name I haven't seen before, says Topaz Photo AI can enlarge an image without degradation. So let me go and find Topaz Photo AI, and I'll put a bookmark on that so we don't lose it. That's a great solution. Topaz Labs, editing with AI. Go to the home page. Here's their home page. Grab the link, put it in the bookmarks. Whoops. Grab the link and put it in the bookmarks bar. And now I can work with what I've got at least well enough to get the general idea. Thank you for that very much. Japan 0499. That was I think that probably solved the problem. And John Pershing says, yes, but Stratosphere Lounge, please confirm each face. You do not want to put up a random guy by mistake. I don't know how to confirm each face. On some level, I'm just going to have to trust it. I can be absolutely certain I don't put up duplicate faces. And it would be useful to know if anybody has actually debunked this thing. But there we go. And Japan 0499 says, actually, we've chatted many times. I'm the guy from Hiroshima. I just haven't been able to catch you live for a while. Hiroshima is such an example. I mean, it's such an example. It's probably not news to you, living in Hiroshima, that it was completely leveled. But now, and shortly after the war started, it is one of the most beautiful cities in Japan, and I had to go looking on Google Earth to find where I think the term is the barocenter, where the bomb actually exploded above. And there's a plaque on a wall next to a gas station, and that's it. They've still got the dome, obviously, and that's a memorial, and that's appropriate. But the Barry Center, where the thing actually detonated, you could walk past without the slightest knowledge of what actually happened on that spot, because that's, you can rebuild. So it's definitely great to see you, Japan, and thanks for the suggestion on that. So I'll be working on that come time to deal with black vote. So I'm going to just call that episode Blacks. I'm going to call the Hispanic episode Hispanics. I'm just going to try and do one word if I can, and just list the reasons not to vote for this monster. She's not really a monster. She's too stupid to be a monster. The Hypo Center. And he says it's actually the Shima Clinic. I took a class there about a month ago. Come and visit. I'll show you around. It sounds very tempting. Very tempting. What would I call the white one? I think I'd call the white one blue collar. If we can peel the blue collar vote off of the Democrats, as I say in this first episode on equity, they don't just lose a voting block, they lose their soul, and what's even worse, they lose their brand. They lose their brand. So that's the strategy. So anyway, enough about me. Let's have a look at what people are asking in the comment section, and it's been. Thanks for listening, and thanks for the kind words and the suggestions. I'm real excited, and I'm determined to. I don't know if I'll be able to keep this level of excitement, but I certainly will give everything I've got to keep up the level of discipline necessary to get this thing in actual gear. If we can get the membership numbers back up, then we can start thinking about hiring editors again, and I can do more creative stuff and work smarter, not harder. Right now I have to work hard, and I've been working hard and stupid. So there you go. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, that's exactly right. Work harder, not smarter. I mean, work smarter, not harder. I've been working harder, but stupider. and Phil and Bobby Trick have enormously helped me. They whether I can walk the walk or not, we're going to find out. But they certainly shown me the way out of this, and I am exceedingly grateful for that. So let's see what we got for our questions here tonight. As I put on my cogitation spectacles. My God, there's apparently a show going on. Oh, and somebody mentioned in the comments prior to the show starting, as far as I know, the offer for the month free membership at Daily Wire is still good. The reason I didn't do it earlier was partially because we didn't have the shows ready that I wanted, but the main reason was that that offer became good. I think probably they said, I think they approved it, I think probably the day before the Candace Owen kerfluffle, which I am very, very happy to say has died down. And you want to talk about inauspicious timing. I think it hurt the release of Empire of Terror as well, but nothing I can do about that. But I will make it so that everybody who's sacrificed bill time should be able to get to see it. It is time for a membership drive, but the membership drive has to have the first episode of the 3 shows that I promised, and I can't do it until then, and so I've got a lot to do. Okay, am I logged in? Yes. So let's go back. Should have just taken me there. There we go. We have been doing some back-end work on the website. We still have a lot of issues that we're working, but we had some major DNS problems that have been resolved. And I went to try a new membership today with a new email address, a new name, a different credit card, and I got a critical error, and that ain't good. So we're working that problem as we speak. TSL questions for August 8th. And this is curated by Roadrunner. Thank you very much, Roadrunner. Appreciate it enormously as usual. Let's see what we got here. The site's slowing down a little bit too. I think there's an image optimizer, and there's also another option. I'm at A2 servers, which are the fastest servers there are. There is a dedicated server option. I don't believe I think I might have a dedicated server, but they've got like a super fast version or something. It's nothing like the old site, but it's still slower than I would like, and there's a lot of pictures there. Oh, look at this. From Video Lab Guy, a $20 super chat that says, been a fan of BillWhittle.com for years, and thank you very much. And that's the first, I think that's what the one means. But anyway, thank you. That's very, very kind of you. I appreciate it very much. All right, here we go. So we got just looking down, we got a Roadrunner, we got a Janie Waterman. It's good to see Janie again. We got an Andrew Allen. That name is relatively new. Good to see that. We got a Marusha, we got a Troy Stevens, we got an Eric Blake. And then I've got my unfinished list of things that I have to do before I go home today, and which will get finished before I go home today. So let's get rolling. Okay, starting off with Roadrunner. Greetings, friend William. Hail and fare thee well, friend Roadrunner. Hanlon's Razor says, never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. Let me just say before we go on that I have an almost religious belief in that maxim. With all of the negative information coming out about the Trump assassination attempt concerning the Secret Service, how much stupidity do we have to wade through before we can state that there was actual malice by those in charge? That is a great point, and I'm glad to get a chance to talk about that. Some of the items. The Secret Service Command Center was not coordinated with the local, was not co-located with the local police command center. Even though Secret Service radio communications are routinely recorded, they weren't for this event. The Secret Service was notified about the shooter 17 minutes before the start of the event and still let Trump take the stage. The Secret Service is now stonewalling Congress and has put the man whose job it was to oversee security in charge of the investigation. The investigators have yet to talk to the local police who were assisting the Secret Service, including the snipers and many more. And P.S. Gosh, I still get goosebumps when I rewatch the Dick Rutan Remembrance. Thank you for that. Thank you. I was very, very proud of that work. It's approaching 100,000 views now. So, yes. Let me tell you. Well, let me just first of all come out and say we are well past enough evidence to put this past just plain stupidity or incompetence. Well past that point. Well past it. One of the things that I saw, I don't want to go on the record with this because I only saw it once, but I saw what absolutely appeared to be the shooter, and he looked like he was trans. He had long hair, and not just a guy long hair. He just looked like a typical trans teen. I have not seen that picture since then, but I am a little suspicious that they are running his junior high school picture every time that they show a picture of the guy. I mean, they did this with Michael Brown, and they did it with with all the people they want to canonize. They run a picture of him as a little kid so that you see that. But if that were the case, then I can understand why the media would go into Trayvon Martin, thank you, absolute full-on lock it down thing, because if you want to talk about something that doesn't fit the narrative, that's it. So I would like to see a more recent picture of the shooter than his junior high school picture. And while he may not have had a large social media footprint, it doesn't mean he has no footprint. So there's that. Here's the single most damning piece of evidence. Okay, a lot of times when I'm trying to determine whether something is real or not, whether a conspiracy theory, I'm just using the expression, but get conspiracy out of it, whether or not a theory has evidence, whether there's honest evidence about a theory of something happening. Sometimes the best evidence is the evidence that occurs after the event. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about before I give you the example on this. During the 2020 election, we were told that the State Farm Center in Atlanta, Georgia, was delaying turning in their votes because of a burst water main. That was the official excuse. Burst water main. That's why they could not get the votes in from this by far, most democratic voting location in the critical state of Georgia. And when election night was unfolding, they said, well, we can't call Georgia yet because we haven't gotten our the numbers from this place. Apparently there's been a burst water main, and that's why we can't deliver the goods. Well, when it came time to explain what actually happened, the idea of a burst water main went away, because you can go to the State Farm Center and see that there was no burst water main. So the story changed. And the story that 60 Minutes covered had a guy who's from the election committee, so he's got to be telling the truth, who basically said, well, no, it wasn't a burst water main. We just got a call at 9:30 p.m. That told us to stop the count, which we did. And then we started counting again the next morning when we got another call. And 60 Minutes goes, oh, there you go. See, conspiracy theory solved. They got a call to stop counting. There's no fraud going on. And at no point did the 60 Minutes interviewer think to ask, who called you? Who called you with the authority to tell you to stop counting? He's the representative of the election, who's there to defend against election fraud, said that we got a call to stop counting, and the 60 Minutes interviewer just said, oh, well, that explains everything. Am I the only person in the world who would like to know who that call came from and why it was made? The main thing about the 2020 election is, well, where's your evidence? My evidence is that the 5 key states that were in play all stopped counting at the same time. That's never happened before. I don't have to show you reams of data. That's the evidence. The evidence is right in front of your face. So now let's apply that same argument. What did the people defending the story have to say? Because the guy who defended the story that there was no fraud going on at that counting location had an excuse that was so pathetic that I know it's not true. So why wasn't there somebody covering the most likely place and the and the most advantageous place to put a shooter when Donald Trump was speaking in Pennsylvania. Put the theory aside and ask yourself, why wasn't that building being covered? Well, the person who was responsible for the security said it was because there was a sloping roof and we did not want to endanger our personnel. Now, that didn't come from Alex Jones. That came from the director of the Secret Service. And when the people who are in charge of defending what looks to be a cover story, when their best defense is something that ridiculous, then that is profoundly good evidence to me that there's something wrong, that they're lying. And there's been tremendous mockery of this, and I've seen a bunch of videos about the new crack Secret Service squad that can handle a 3-degree slope on the roof. I've seen pictures of cows walking around on the roof, all that other stuff. But the most compelling reason that I am sure that this was not accidental was when the director of the Secret Service says, well, we would have covered this most likely and most advantageous position, but it had a sloping roof, and we didn't want to risk injuring any of our personnel. When that's what comes out of the mouth of the person in charge of the Secret Service, you know there's lying. You know it, and it's coming from the horse's mouth. So, what I think happened is, a lot of people think that they set this kid up. I don't think that they set him up. I think that they minimized the amount of coverage for Trump, and that they were basically told, you don't have to be super, super careful, not just on this event, but on Trump in general, because the guy not only had 17 minutes of him being on the roof with people shouting, there's a guy on the roof with a gun, and not only did a policeman pop his head up and have the guy turn the gun on him and have him go back down again, and him not shouting gun, but he was seen there an hour before the event with a spotting scope, a rangefinder, and no one thought that was peculiar. And Dave Big Booty also points out that this was the first Trump rally that CNN and MSNBC were carrying live. I'll tell you something, I'm sure most of you have seen it by now, but within 2 or 3 days of the assassination attempt, somebody did a 3D reconstruction of where Trump's head position was, and where the path of the bullet was, and he turned probably within a half a second. In fact, he must have turned within a half a second of when that guy pulled the trigger, because that bullet path is going straight through the back of his head, and he turns to look at the screen, and it nicks his ear. And I'll tell you what, man, a lot of people look for evidence of divine, but that's extremely unlikely. So what I think happened was, I think that the Secret Service was lax on purpose, and was basically looking the other way and turning a blind eye to these things. And the Secret Service has taken a grilling about this, and they were prepared to take a grilling, but they thought that they would take a grilling and have Trump out of the race. The one thing they were not prepared for was that this guy would miss. I'm not saying they put him there. I'm not saying they didn't put him there. I am saying that clearly the Secret Service was not giving Donald Trump the protection, attention that he deserved. And that was done on purpose. There are reports that Secret Service agents were diverted from the Trump rally to escort Dr. Jill Biden to some event. There are stories that the Trump campaign asked for more Secret Service protection and that it was turned down. There's a lot of those stories going around. I haven't been able to verify any of them, but they are showing up in multiple relatively reliable sources. So, yeah. Do I think that the FBI or the government put this kid on the roof? No. Do I think that they were allowing anybody, and given the rhetoric against Donald Trump, I'd like to know. It would help the argument to know, and I wouldn't be surprised if this information was classified, but I would like to know how many thwarted assassination attempts there have been on President Trump's life during his 4 years in office. How many times did the Secret Service catch somebody and prevent them from taking a shot at the president while he was president for those 4 years? And the reason I need to know that is because if it turns out that there were none or one or two, then this thing was a long shot. But if it turns out that the Secret Service catches somebody or prevents a potential assassin once a month or once every couple of months or once every couple of weeks, obviously there are different levels of threat and different levels of how close they got and so on. But if it turns out that it is a relatively frequent occurrence for the Secret Service to prevent an assassination attempt on any president, not just Trump, if that is relatively frequent, then all you have to do is turn down the vigilance of the Secret Service and it's mission accomplished. You don't have to go to the trouble of having a shooter and having him, knocked off by the sniper. You just, basically what you're doing is you're taking the Secret Service away completely and then letting nature take its course. So, there you go. Eric points out that the left tried to portray the shooter as a never-Trumper Republican when he was a staunch leftist. Well, they said he was a registered Republican, and all the left-wingers after the assassination attempt said, see, nothing, it was a Republican who took a shot at him. It's like, no. If I want to go to Republican events to kill Republicans, I'm going to register as a Republican. He made a donation to a liberal cause, and then again, there's that picture that has not been released, which is telling me it's getting squashed by Google and everybody else, where this guy did not look like a kid with braces. He looked like a guy with an agenda, and it's not the first time that a guy with that kind of agenda has taken a shot at somebody. So this hill is the hill that the progressives have decided to. This is the hill they're going to plant their flag and fight and die on. Win or lose, is the trans hill. And the reason is, as I've said before, if they can convince you, not that a man becomes a woman magically by saying that he is, but if their position is, we, all good people of conscience, agree that if a man identifies as a woman, he is a woman. That's the definition of a woman. They don't have to get you to actually believe that. But if they can get you to take a knee to it, then they win. Because if they can get you to take a knee to it, then they can get you to take a knee to anything. If the most obvious distinction between two people can be gaslighted, then anything else can be gaslighted. That's why they're fighting on this trans hill. If they can convince you that you are not capable of telling a man from a woman, and that there is in fact no difference, there's no such thing. If they can convince you of something that obvious, then they can convince you of everything. And like I said, they don't have to make you believe it. They just have to make you agree. And that's why this issue is so important to them. And that's why something like this is really, really bad for them if it were to be discovered that was in fact the case. I'm not stating that as a fact. I am saying I saw a photograph that clearly, certainly looked to me like the same person as the shooter. I saw a very early photograph. I mean, this thing came out within 10 minutes of the shots being fired, before it was either censored or pixelated or whatever. But somewhere online, I saw a photograph of the shooter dead that had not been blocked or pixelated, and it was a person with long hair, hunched over, blood coming down the roof. Didn't get a good look at the face, but that was the shooter, and the shooter had long hair. that was kind of fallen forward over his face. So when it turns out that picture is disappeared, you've got another layer of evidence, and this is real evidence, because if there was nothing to it, right? If there was nothing to it, then they wouldn't have to hide the picture. And if there was a good reason why nobody was covering that most obvious position, then the director of the Secret Service wouldn't have to say we didn't put somebody up there because the roof is sloping. See what I'm saying? Her denial, her explanation is the best evidence that we have that something more than just incompetence was going on. Because nobody is that incompetent. Nobody believes. This is like Michael Jackson telling you that he never had any facial surgery and that these 3 completely white, blonde, blue-eyed kids are his biological children, both of which he said directly to camera, and just flat out asserted that it was true, and expected us to believe it. Expected us to believe it. So my hope is that, and this is an important point too that Andrew DeLay makes in YouTube, is that they need to make you complicit in the lie. This is how the Soviet Union lasted as long as it did. This awful, awful system made people, scared them, and rightfully so, with the terror state that they ran. But it scared citizens into agreeing with them and taking a knee. And once you've agreed and taken the knee, you are no longer in a psychological position to resist, because you've already capitulated. You've already capitulated. And that's what they want. They want you to capitulate and surrender the idea of reality. You have to surrender the entire idea of external reality. If they can get you to do that and admit to it in public, then they win. And this is why somebody like Riley Gaines is so important. And why the most, look, I haven't been following the Olympics, but I did see this Algerian fighter, and I'm not stupid enough to say that I could knock the living shit out of the guy, but I sure wanted to. Mike Tyson apparently offered to fight him. Honestly, I would go into I'd sell my car to buy a ticket to watch that guy fight Mike Tyson. And parenthetically, as a person who used to absolutely despise Mike Tyson with the fiber of my bones, something has happened to that man. Something has really happened to Mike Tyson, and the more I see and hear of him, the better I like him. I like him better and better and better. I'm at the point now where I almost love the guy. He has changed. He has. Lady Hawk says he found God. Well, that'll do it. Mike Tyson has become wise and gentle. He's still ready to fight what's his name, and I sure wouldn't want to be on Mike Tyson's bad side. But for a guy who was so out of control and so aggressive on everything, he's different now. And when he said he'd fight this girl, I would. There's no amount of effort I wouldn't go to see that fight, which would last. Well, I don't know how long would it take for Mike Tyson to walk from a corner of the ring to the center of the ring. That's how long the fight would last. But anyway, John Pershing says, I'm willing to believe that the boxer thinks she's a woman, but does have XY genes per reports, and that is just. Look, anytime, let me just deal with this trans issue because it's going to come up again later in many places, especially in probably the second episode of How to Beat Harris. Any argument about trans issues, anything that is not about XY and XX chromosomes is a losing fight. If you try to define a woman and you try to define the woman as being able to give birth, then they say, well, there's lots of women who can't give birth. And no, it's a trap. Everything is a trap. Well, do you have these kind of body parts? Well, you can lop body parts off and you can make body parts new, but nothing trumps the XY XX chromosome. That's the only definition. Thorough Ryan says that she was born with female parts. This sometimes happens, but that's not how we're going to judge. We're going to judge by, are you XX or XY chromosomes, because they're going to determine, those chromosomes are going to determine your hormonal levels and your skeletal structure. And put aside how much hormones you're taking, you look at Leah Thomas with those shoulders. Leah Thomas could take all the estrogen Leah Thomas wants to. Leah Thomas could come back with a testosterone level of 0, and it doesn't matter, because the mechanical advantage afforded Leah Thomas by having shoulders as wide as I am tall is why she wins by 6 laps. Lord Bios has something to say here. The female boxer is an intersex individual. She was born XXY with female parts but creates testosterone like a male. Well, if she's not XX, Lord Bios, then she doesn't belong in women's sports. He says she's neither fully female nor fully male, so that's fine. She is not fully female, so no. No. The answer is no. If you've got a Y chromosome, you are combat qualified. It is interesting to know that she's XXY. I didn't know there was such a thing, but I have heard of intersex. And by the way, the trans movement uses intersex people like this as proof that there's not just two sexes or two genders. Lord Bio says it's very rare. I'm sure it is very rare. I know I'd be curious to know if Lord Bios knows pretty much everything about biology and a lot of other things too. It's obvious. I mean, there's obviously a reason for it. I just don't know what the reason is. XX chromosomes are female. XY chromosomes are male. Are there ever any YY chromosome combinations? Obviously, they're not, viable, because they don't exist in the world. But are they possible? Because there's XX and XY, but there's no YY. No, it just doesn't happen. Interesting. Okay, well, hopefully that answered the question about the Secret Service. Let's see what we got next. J.D. Waterman. Hey, Janie. Good to see you. Hello, sir. Pray you're feeling better today. Thank you. What do you think about this thought I've had? Kamala Harris did not tap governor of Minnesota for VP. She tapped the governor of George Floyd for VP. Interesting. This is an open attempt to return to the violent divide that boosted leftist careers at the expense of human life, livelihood, and hope. She's without morals, beliefs, and cares about nothing but her own ability to be the best puppet she can be. Give me Hillary any day. Your insight and the time it takes to share it is so gracious and an obvious labor of love. You're a blessing, and I thank God that you're in this world right now with me so I can learn from you. My goodness gracious. Thanks a million again, Janie. Well, Janie, you have no idea how much those kind words mean to me, and that goes to everybody else too. Thank you. I think it's here's a case where I'm not going to put down to malice what I can ascribe to stupidity. The scuttlebutt behind the scenes is that everybody knows that Shapiro would have been a much more electable choice than this clown. In my, I shouldn't give away the joke, but I can't help myself. In my How to Beat Kamala Harris episode 1, I say, and her running mate is a guy. Her running mate reminds me of what Fred Flintstone would look like if he was a 60-year-old union organizer. But my understanding is that her base would not vote for the Democrats if there was a Jewish man on the ticket. When I say her base, you would think that would be outlined by. You'd think that the Jewish vote, which goes so Democratic, you would think that they would protect that at any cost. But this is the beauty of progressive politics. When you're dealing with victimhood, the Jews have been trumped quite a long time ago by just about everybody else. So they're being thrown under the bus. And so I don't think, I just think that they are stupid enough to believe what most of the rest of the insulated elite have believed, although it's getting through to the business people. I don't think it's lost on any businessman. Let's just back this up for a second, because this does apply to Tim Walz. But let's just back this up. So let's say you're the executive in charge of, I don't know, off the top of my head, let's say a beer company. Let's just say Budweiser. You're in your 50s or 60s. You've made your entire life business. You know essentially nothing about the pop culture. Consultants are hired. Consultants come in and say to you that the only way for your brand to survive is to make it appeal to a new generation of consumers, because the average age of the people that buy Budweiser is high and getting higher. And so if there's going to be a future, you have to be able to reach a new generation of potential Budweiser drinkers. And if you're an executive who hears this pitch, you would reasonably enough say, that makes sense to me. Then the people that do the pitch say, well, here's what young people go for. Gen Z is all about trans rights and all of this woke agenda. This is what young people want. And if you want to continue to sell beer to a new generation, you are going to have to change your advertising to appeal to these young people, and that means you're going to have to make woke content, because that's what your next generation of consumers wants. That's a lie, but it sounds compelling to a businessman. Now, some cases, people like the guy in charge of Disney, he knows full well what he's doing. But for any one of these other companies, like that tractor company and all the rest of it, these advertising consultants, marketing consultants come in and they tell them that if you want a new customer base, you got to go far, far left, because that's what those nutty, crazy kids want. And so you agree because they're experts. What's happened is Star Wars is garbage. The amount of woke that's been done to Star Wars, the brand that they sold for $4 billion is garbage. The last number I heard, which is almost inconceivable, but I've seen it in a couple places, is that Dylan Mulvaney has cost Budweiser $27 billion of lost sales, market share, and brand damage. $27 billion for a commercial that was really not even run very widely. Right? So the pop culture is telling us very loudly that they, even people as isolated as the elites and these people in corporate boardrooms, are starting to figure out that nobody wants this stuff, because if they did, Budweiser would have gained $27 billion worth of value, and things like Captain Marvel would have been a $1 billion out of the park success instead of lose money. But that's not what's happening. And the politics being downstream of culture, I think these people are too stupid to realize that peak woke is way, way behind us. So they're doubling down on something that people already have decided they don't want. And that I do not attribute to malice or to four-dimensional chess. I just attribute that just to plain raw stupidity and living in the liberal elite bubble that tells them, no, everybody believes this stuff. Nope. They don't get it, and they don't want to get it. So when she went with the governor of Wisconsin, she is doubling down on all of these things that the last 2 or 3 years have remarkably been proven, that people just don't want. She's doubling down on defund the police. She's doubling down on Black Lives Matter. She's doubling down on like you said, the George Floyd thing. She's doubling down on burning Minneapolis to the ground like this is somehow a good thing. Minnesota, rather. I keep saying Wisconsin. I meant to say Minnesota. Thank you for correcting me. Minnesota. She's doubling down on all of this because she thinks that's what people want, because that's what she wants. That's her idea. That's her system of morals, such as it is, and so she believes it, and I think she's going to be in for a rude surprise. What I'm trying to do with this series and get it knocked, I'm going to see if I can get it to Kerry Lake and get it bumped upstairs. So maybe some Republicans somewhere will figure out how to do this messaging thing. But yeah, I'm sorry about the Wisconsin thing. Minnesota. If they have badly miscalculated, and instead of talking about how great, you're not going to change people's opinions about Trump. You got to give them reasons to vote against Harris, and she has helped the cause enormously. I got another joke from the Harris thing, but I'm not going to spoil it because I really love it. And I'll just let you see it. And a number of people have commented on Tampon Tim, and I don't understand the reference. I've been in and out of the news cycle. Somebody want to clue me in on why that's a thing? I know this stolen valor thing has apparently got some legs to it, that he would be wearing special forces hats, hats with the special forces logo on it while he was out doing campaign events. Oh, he promotes tampons in the boys' room. That's what it is. Yep. Forced elementary school to put tampon machines in boys' rooms. Perfect. That's precisely what I want. I could not have picked a better candidate. Darth Chuck the Merciless says Minnesota has a communist for a governor, and the 50,000 Somalis Obama jammed into Minneapolis, I guess, made the Twin Cities no-go zones for normal people. Yep. Okay. Well, he's already got his label hung around his neck. Tired Joe and Sleepy Joe, and it writes itself. So when they decided to triple down on the far left, I was quite relieved. And we'll see. But to actually answer your question, Janie, I think you're right. I think she thinks that the American people are behind the BLM riots, and that they're behind defund the police. I think she actually believes that. And the reason I think she actually believes that is because the people she talks to every day believe that. Kamala Harris has not distinguished herself for her ability to spot intellectual trends or patterns. And I don't know. But I was enormously relieved when they announced Tim Walz, not just because Tim Walz is easy to beat, but because it's telling me that their fundamental strategy is absolutely outdated and was probably never true, but most certainly is not true now. That's why I felt so good about that particular pick. And if it turns out he's wearing special forces hats at rallies and talking about his military service, then you could say he's not actually lying in the same way that somebody who goes around wearing a silver star is. But you could also say that that's pretty clear that you are trying to get people to believe something without actually coming out and saying it. So anyway, Andrew Allen, did I miss one? No. Andrew Allen, follow-up question regarding is it at SineadandDelvingMail.com and her question about Harris Walz. With little, did I miss somebody? With little in the way of election reform passed since 2020, we still have ballot harvesting, mail-in ballots with nary a signature checked, massive voter registration fraud, and zuckspucks to the billion-dollar boogaloo. Do the Democrats think that Trump can't escape the margin of fraud and that regardless of what they do, they have the election bought and paid for? If the result is sufficiently fortified, why go with some centrist VP when the Democrats can finally get their socialist presidential dream? P.S. We all keep forgetting that Trump's sentencing is scheduled for September. If the fraud can't take him out, surely the New York judge can just lock Trump up for 20 years. Well, they can certainly find him guilty and sentence him for 20 years. but we still have the rule of appeal in this country, and the particulars about the conviction are so astonishingly extraordinary that there's no question that it'll be overturned on appeal. And by the way, if you really genuinely want to ensure that Trump wins the election in a landslide, there's nothing better you could do than put him in jail a month before the election. Have him campaign from jail. This is the thing they don't understand about Trump and never understand about Trump. We're not voting for Trump. It's like I said at the beginning. It was people don't vote for things, they vote against things. I'm not voting for Trump. I'm voting against the state. I'm voting against this machine. I'm voting against the FBI, and I'm voting against the IRS and the CIA, and I'm voting against executive orders, and I'm voting against standing armies of environmental. I'm voting against all of it. I'm voting against celebrities who tell me how to vote because what it's like to be isolated in your $20 million mansion during the pandemic. I'm voting against all of that, and in order to vote against that, that means I have to vote for Trump. I actually like Trump, and his peccadillos have grown on me. I can imagine a lot of people who would be a better president than Trump, and certainly a better presidential candidate than Trump. And I've met several of them, but I cannot, for the life of me, imagine anybody who has the kind of courage that he has, the thickness of the skin, which is paradoxically coupled with the thinness of the skin, and whatever doubts you may have had. I was convinced that the reason to vote for Trump is that he's the only president in modern history that came out of the White House poorer than he was when he went in. The fact that you can't buy a billionaire is extremely appealing to me. But honestly, when he was down and the mic was still on and they're saying, okay, let's get him to the car, and he said, let me get my shoes, and then he pops his head up. They had said shoot her down, but he had no idea how many shooters were there. He's got blood streaming down his face. When he came out of that dog pile with his fist in the air, I said, that's not just the moral courage. It takes moral courage to stand in front of a bunch of people and risk getting shot at. That's just plain raw physical leader, Churchillian, frickin' alpha male courage. And not that I had any doubts about Trump or voting for Trump, but that's when I actually began to really just love the guy. And they don't understand that the more they prosecute him, the stronger he gets, because we're not voting for Trump. We're voting against them. And so they keep giving us reasons to vote against them because of the way they go after Trump. And as Trump said himself, the best thing he ever said by far is, they're not coming for me, they're coming for you. I'm just in the way. That is a campaign slogan that should be the entire campaign in a nutshell. That's it. That's all. That should be the whole campaign. They're not coming for me, they're coming for you. I'm just in the way. So there you go. Marusha Dark, with all that's happened already this summer, what do you predict the October surprise will be? I don't know that there can be an October surprise. It's tough to shock people in the middle of a well. I saw somewhere on the internet. I saw a segment about where this person was interviewing a couple of cops in San Francisco, and these were two of the most butch lesbians I've ever seen. Super short haircut, arms crossed, chewing gum, black sunglasses. These are the police force. And the question was, is nudity allowed in San Francisco? And they said, yeah, nudity is allowed in San Francisco. You can walk down the streets naked in San Francisco. I said, well, are there any limits on it? They said, yeah, there's no sexual activity allowed. You can't be masturbating, or you can't be having actual intercourse with somebody. But other than that, you can be naked walking down the streets of San Francisco. And I thought, okay, if you live in San Francisco, and this is what you see on the streets on a daily basis, then what the heck is going to shock you? What's going to shock you? A man in a leather cap and a leather thong walking down the street? That would shock you if you lived in Des Moines, but it would be considered, the guy'd be considered a conservative in San Francisco. And so I'm using that example to say that there have been so many twists and turns that I cannot imagine anything happening in October that would make me go, wow, you know, wow. Now, I may be wrong about that, but given what we've seen so far, it's going to take a pretty big October surprise to surprise me. I'm ready for just about everything. Nothing will surprise me anymore, I don't think. Okay, here's Troy Stevens. J.D. Vance is weird, but is he a queer? Well, he's certainly not a queer. He doesn't look like a queer. He doesn't dress like a queer, and he's not on television like a queer, at least not professionally. You need to understand something about this weird label. It's one of the episodes I'm going to do on Beating Harris. It's going to be called Weird. For Gen Z, weird doesn't mean for Gen Z what it means for us. For Gen X, Gen Y, even millennials, weird means weird, like unusual and kind of creepy. I haven't been able to precisely triangulate what the Gen Z actual meaning of weird is, but it's much more along the lines, it's much more derogatory. It's much more along the lines of predator, pedophile kind of creepy. And also on some level unbelievable, like sus, like suspect, it's like sus. When I get your drinking cups ready, everybody, get your bingo cards. A lot of times during the police body cam videos, you'll see Gen Zers saying, "You're just weird. You're weird," to a policeman who's arresting him. There's nothing weird about that policeman in the way that we understand the word weird. He's a perfectly normal guy, dressed as a policeman, doing his job. But they're saying you're just weird, which they mean, I think they mean so far out of the ordinary, so far beyond the pale, that you're insane, that there's something insane about you, that you're so weird that you're not even fit to talk to, that it's a safety violation, it's an invasion of your personal safety. I don't feel safe talking to somebody weird, and so it's much more loaded term than it used to be, which is why they're trying to stick it on J.D. Vance and so on, and this is where the power of memes come in. You show a picture of a drag queen, and then you show a picture of J.D. Vance, and you put under the drag queen normal, and under J.D. Vance you put weird. That's how they define things. The youth vote has been spoken about ever since I was a youth, and I'm not aware that the youth vote has ever turned an election. I am aware of the kind of response that, best example, Bobby Kennedy represented, and Barack Obama had that too. That this was hope for the future, and that young people were going to come out not to vote against somebody, but to vote for a candidate. There's no question Obama had that, and there's no question that Bobby Kennedy had it. That he had followers and supporters who genuinely worshipped him. Kamala Harris doesn't have that. She doesn't have anything like that. Neither did Joe Biden. Neither did George Bush. Donald Trump has it. He's got fanatical support, but obviously not among young people. So without that love of a candidate. By the way, I'll tell you who else I thought had that kind of appeal. It's an utter mystery to me, but I think you can make a strong case that Bernie Sanders had that kind of appeal for young people and for leftists. It wasn't just like we get to vote against Trump. It's like people thought that Bernie Sanders is a socialist, and Bernie Sanders is not afraid to admit it. This is why I think it's so easy to peel people away from Kamala Harris, no matter which way she goes. If she admits she's a liberal, you lose the working class. But if she denies it, then shame her in front of her liberal friends. You're not only you are so wishy-washy that you can't be proud of the fact that you're the most liberal person in the Senate when you were in the Senate. in the How to Beat Harris thing, I say if somebody said to Ted Cruz or Josh Hawley or somebody said you're the most conservative member of the Senate, they would have said, well, thank you. I worked very hard at it. You wouldn't go, well, I don't know if that. Well, how do you define conservative? And I'm just a person with a viewpoint. No, conservative. Somebody said you're the most conservative. Somebody said to me, you're the most conservative member of the Senate. I'd say, wow, well, that's awesome. Thanks. Can I use that quote? If somebody says you're the most liberal or progressive member of the Senate, it's like, well, I don't know if we need to be bandying around terms like this. I don't know if this does any good. I'm just a person whose background. Blah, 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 blah. This is the fault line. This is the fault line in the left. This is where you have to drive the wedge. This is what I'm good at. Is like where's the rhetorical failure? And the rhetorical failure is they cannot say what they believe because nobody wants what they believe. They have to lie about it. And in the thing I wrote last night, I said this is the difference between what they're selling and what they're advertising. And this is where you have to get them. You have to make them commit to what they're selling as opposed to what they're advertising. Make them pick one because they're selling one thing and they're advertising something else. Make them commit to one. And when you do that, you lose half of your support. Whichever half you pick, you lose the other half of the support. I can't explain it. It's just weird. We got an Eric Blake, and I think that's it, by golly. Now, as usual, it's taking me an hour and a half to finish reading it, but there you go. It starts out with, are you a turtle, Mr. Whittle? And my response to that would be, you bet your ass I am. So there's been several plot turns since Harris picked the leftist ball of twine from Minnesota for VP. As you probably know, we probably already discussed tonight. The tides seem to have turned against him via Swift Boats Veterans 2.0, as it were, and this is just the beginning. Just the beginning. Now, to be perfectly honest, I can't help thinking that this current scandal isn't just icing on the cake. It's essentially bailed us out of a potentially very bad situation stemming largely from our own hubris. By that I mean when it was announced Harris picked Waltz instead of Josh Shapiro or Mark Kelly, our side immediately by and large rejoiced due to Waltz's open leftist agenda as governor, but, here's the big problem. Waltz doesn't act like a lefty. He doesn't talk like one either. He comes off as an actual blue-collar, good old boy who had a nice-looking, stable family and who signed legislation to put tampons in boys' rooms in elementary school. There you go. You got it's forgive me for having not used this obvious term before, but we've got a story to tell and we have to pin the tail on the donkey. That's what we have to do. We have to pin the tail on the donkey. He doesn't get to look like a football coach. He's a football coach that signed legislation to put tampons in boys' bathrooms. That's the tail that we have to pin on that particular donkey. He's kind of charming. He seems kind of normal to anyone who doesn't really know what he really is, and that's long been one of our side's biggest flaws, isn't it? We keep acting like we take for granted that average Joe American knows what we know. We forget, of course, that average Joe still gets their news from mainstream outlets. We forget that at our own peril. What do you think, Bill? Am I being too unfair with this? On the contrary, this is the entire strategy of the How to Beat Kamala Harris. It's not a question of what people vote for. It's what they vote against. I'm going to try to put together 13 episodes of what you need to vote against and pass them up the grapevine and hope that somebody with the means to make actual campaign commercials takes some of that advice from a guy out on the fringes of the internet who, if I say so myself, I think understands the rhetoric of messaging better than the rest of the pack combined. And the only reason I can say that is because my friend Andrew Breitbart is no longer among us, because he was a master at it. So anyway, that's the last of the questions. I've got several items on my to-do list for today. So I think we'll probably just wrap this up. It was a great night, a lot of fun questions and interesting stuff. We're a little under 2 hours, which I know is a little short for us, but we did get through all the questions and had a bunch of other things to talk about. So I don't see any point in extending the agony any further. I think we'll wrap this one up. Anyway, as you probably know by now, this show is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com who stick with us through thick and thin. And if you wanted to become one, turns out that through the oversight of the guy who runs the IT department here at BillWhittle.com, we've got a critical error with that, but it is being worked on. We had a major DNS problem, and our guy who designed the website got that fixed. So I'm confident we'll get that problem solved, and we'll see if we can't grow the family a little bit. Yeah, I'm excited, and I've got a lot of things to do tonight, and I got a lot of things to do tomorrow, and I will be very interested on Monday to get your reaction to the first episode of How to Beat Harris, which I'm going to release on Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific. By God. Okay, that's it. Thanks very much for joining us. I guess we'll check out of Twitch first. So thanks for being here, and we'll see you on Monday night for the Stratosphere Studio. Okay, YouTube, you and I need to have a talk. 199 viewers, my goodness, that's a lot of people with time on their hands. I'm relatively certain that most of you are watching from hospital beds in medically induced comas, but you never know. Thanks very much for joining us. That YouTube following gets a little bit bigger every time, and that's always nice to know. And a lot of new faces, a lot of new names here, so we're glad to see you, and thank you not only for the excellent comments and questions, but the kind words of support as well. So we will see you on Monday night, YouTube. Thanks for being here, and as they used to say on the radio, we gone. Bye-bye.